I was born just after the Depression, and we didn't have a lot to eat. We didn't have any money to buy things. We lived in a house that had an outdoor toilet even, because we couldn't afford to live in one that had a bathtub and a bathroom. In fact, we were a poor family, and my mother actually couldn't afford to feed me that much. After the war, there wasn't a lot of money. Even though the war factories had been working, they were closing down now. When I was around 16, 15, I got married. And it wasn't unusual for someone to get married at 15 at that time. My husband and I, neither one were mature enough to handle a marriage at that age, but I did have a daughter. One time when he was angry with our daughter because she was crying so hard and couldn't shut up, and he slapped her, and that sort of ended the marriage. I was working at the Atlantic Pacific Tea Company. I had a girlfriend there. The two of us would go on Thursday nights, have dinner at a restaurant in town, and then we'd go watch the wrestling matches. Every Thursday we would get a better seat until finally we worked our way right up in front. The first row was the sports announcers and the sports reporters. They had the first row, we had the second row. And when it got hectic in the ring, we got hectic with the people in front of us. I mean, you couldn't help it. You're up, you're down, you're bouncing, you're hitting. And I was hitting him, and the one reporter asked if I wouldn't like to be inside the ring instead of outside of it and get paid for it. And I thought he was kidding. So he told me that he made arrangements for me to meet with Billy Wolf, and because I thought he was kidding, I didn't go. The next week, when we went to the wrestling match, he really chastised me for not showing up. So he said he was making another appointment and that I should be there. When I went to see Billy, it was kind of tough because they wanted to know if I could take it. So they took me upstairs. They had a gym upstairs at Alhaf's Arena and beat the crap out of me. I mean, they beat me silly. I went home the next day. I couldn't walk. I was so sore I couldn't walk, but I did walk, and I went up 3 flights of stairs back up to the gym for a second course of what they'd given me the day before. I just didn't want to tell them that they were beating me. So I just let them beat me and showed them I could take it. On my first match, I was a nervous wreck. It wasn't in a big auditorium. It was in front of a men's group. Greek organization had asked to have a wrestling match for their members. It was good because it was a Greek wrestler who had asked to have the girls there, and he gave me a lot of tips. Well, a little pubic hair showed out from under my suit. That was my big lesson from this Greek. Shave. I'm sure that the little jaunts around Ohio were trial periods both for Billy Wolf and for me. Billy hadn't had any publicity pictures taken of me yet. He was sending out information without pictures, and so I'm sure he was waiting to find out if I would stay, if I would work out, if he even wanted me. The first time Billy sent me on the road was with Cora Combs. She sort of watched over me, gave me little hints. She tweezed my eyebrows the first time. I was nervous. Of course I was nervous, but she was like a little mother hen, and so she kept me from worrying that much. And she would pretty much carry the wrestling match. She would only let me in the ring when she knew I was pretty well fresh and not tired. She saw to it that she got me out of the ring when I was tired. Got me over my nervousness, polished me a little bit more, Naturally, I had no education as to what type clothes to wear, how to fix my hair, and she was very influential as the first person I was out with. While I was in Boston, Billy Wolfe, he sent me to Alio's, which was at the time a famous photographer, and he took pictures. It made me look good, you know, when I didn't feel that I looked that good. Cora, of course, helped me to cross your legs, do this, do that, don't leave them, don't let fat hang out, you know, that sort of thing. When Billy first sent me on the road by myself, and I was driving, and he started me out with about 100,000 miles a year. Generally, you would go into an area with a tag team partner, and you would trade off driving because you drove so many miles and you had so much mileage to make in just a couple of days. And you might go from Canada down to Texas or over to Florida. You had no time to meet people or do anything, so you always got to know your tag team partner pretty well. Betty Hawkins was the second tag team partner I had, and she was another great one like Cora Combs. And whether it snowed, whether it rained, you kept going to get to the town that you were booked in, because they had already put the ads in the paper, you were going to make the television interview, and you were going to be there for that match that night that they had you booked. One time on a television interview, it pleased me so much to have a man say to me in the interview, "I expected some big burly woman, and you look like a model." And that was great, and that was because of people that took the time to polish me a wee bit, each one. But once he put me out on the road, he would have me wrestling 5 days a week. And sometimes it was 7 days a week. But once I got in good shape, I really felt great. And I guess it's like all young people, I felt that nothing could happen to me, that I was in control and that I could handle anything anyone offered me. The other girls and I got along well. They would put us in with some of the old-timers, and the old-timers would give us hints how to fall. They would show us how to go before a hit ever came to us. You learn to see when someone was going to hit you, so you learn to avoid these things. That's where people got the impression at the time that a match was rigged and you knew what was going to happen. That's not so. If they were going to drop kick you, you saw them, they had to jump up in the air and move forward. You had your time. Take advantage of it. Get out of the way. Bounce off. Don't let it hit you hard. And those were the things that the old girls would help us to learn. Bev was just a toddler, and my mother took care of my daughter while I was working. And it was especially hard for me to hear her call my mother, Mom. And finally, after quite a while, I became very vocal about it. And my mother stopped her, but my mother had been encouraging it because it had been so many years since she'd had a baby that now she felt good that this was her baby again. So we did finally get it straightened out, and she did stay with her grandmother a few more years, but I kind of resented her being there with her. I knew it was best for her, but I resented it. My mother liked the idea that I was a wrestler. When Billy first put my publicity shots out in Columbus, Ohio, they had a newspaper called The Star. It was a tabloid, and I had the whole front page of the tabloid. And she was never so happy in her life. She carried that around with her forever. But she never came to a wrestling match. She didn't want to see it, and she would never let me take Beverly. It provided a very good living. I was able to buy exotic pets for Beverly, something that she could handle, that she could take care of. And it's not something that I would have bought had I just been a housewife living at home and working at a regular job. I did have a good income. I was able to send my mother money to take care of her. It was not as good as it could have been because my manager got 50%. of everything I earned, which was a big chunk out, but it still left me a good living. It allowed me to have good clothes, a good car, paid all the expenses and left a little bit over to have a little fun with. Argentina Rocco was one of the greatest people I ever knew because he had this fantastic way of being aerial bound most of the time in the ring, and he was willing to share with me some of the tricks for flying and becoming airborne, so to speak. Drop kicks were nothing with him. He could fly through the air and his feet twist around someone, catch them and throw them over. He could send people flying across the ring with his legs. Romance came in short bursts. If I went into a town and Buddy Rogers was there, I would find a note in my box that told me that he was there, give him a call, then we would go out, he would pick me up for breakfast. With the other wrestlers, it was pretty much the same. We would go dancing maybe if there was time for that, and then I wouldn't see him for 3 or 4 more weeks, or maybe even longer. Ella Waldeck and Millie Stafford, they were 2 of my best buddies. They were like sisters, and the other wrestlers were like friends. And especially you would go into town and someone would be there that you knew, and you would call them right away. You'd go swimming for the day, you'd go out and ride horses, you'd go do something for the day while you had a chance. Jackie Nichols was a great one to go to the beach with because he always wanted to show off his body, and he would have a couple of us girls standing up beside him helping him pose, and we didn't mind it, we enjoyed it. There were a number of wrestlers who were minorities that we didn't consider any different from us. There were Asians, we had Chinese, there were colored, that's what they were called at the time. We had Spanish wrestlers. We actually had an advantage having all of these people because they brought a different type of wrestling to us. And they shared their education in wrestling as well as what we had to share with them. My shoulders were knocked out of place several times. My pelvis was separated, my hips were disjointed. The one thing that bothered me, you don't go into the ring with the intention of breaking someone's bones or causing them anything fatal, any fatal harm. But June Byers didn't like me when I first came on the road. June was one of the big timers that Billy pitted me against. June always wanted to prove that every new girl coming into wrestling had to have what it takes, and she was the one to show them how. And in the very first match that I had with her, I was holding my own pretty well for a while, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, came this fist straight in the middle of my face. And she broke my nose, and I think I bled about half the blood in my body out. Both eyes were swollen shut, black eyes, and with the broken nose I had to go and have it taken care of. And I had to have several operations after that on my nose because she broke so many little pieces in it. I was pitted against June again, I guess nearly a year later. And I got out. I got my revenge. I had just drop kicked her, she got up, and I got up from the drop kick at the same time, and we bumped heads. It was that simple. But she had an egg come out on the front of her head. And she really thought that I did that on purpose. And I didn't, but I really let her think I did. And she came to my dressing room after, and she apologized for the first time and said that she just wanted to know whether I could take care of myself or not. And she would never have any more problems with me. Nell Stewart was my favorite person. Nell was a good person to begin with. Nell had everything that every woman wanted. She had furs, she had the cars, the big cars, she had the fancy clothes, she had a closet with about 80 to 100 pair of shoes. She had the moves that were right in the ring. She had long blonde hair. She looked like she just stepped out of Hollywood. Nell was just a little bit of everything, and you would watch her and you couldn't help but admire her. She was actually a benefactor of mine. I didn't really know anything about style. I didn't have any money to buy those things. Nell gave me at least 15, 20 pair of shoes, 2 or 3 bathing suits. Nell gave me a wrestling robe, beautiful wrestling robe. Once I got to know Nell, no one else could inspire me like she did. In time, I came to love Billy Wolfe. He was like a father, but Billy was actually a dirty old man. He was married to Mildred. He ran around on Mildred naturally. He had all of these girls, and many of them wanted to be wrestlers, so they'd do anything to be pushed to the top. And Billy had pretty much what he ever wanted with girls. He divorced Mildred. He married Nell Stewart. He married her, and I think 6 months after they got married, they were filing for divorce. There were a number of women that he just had at his beck and call. Billy always backed me in just about everything. One thing he didn't back me in, and that was the reason I stopped wrestling. All states didn't allow girls to wrestle. St. Louis was one place we couldn't wrestle. Finally, they said they would allow girl wrestlers. And I was chosen as one of the girls to go in on a match. So I expected to get 17% of the gate. But at the time, there were other male champions on the match who also were supposed to get 17% of the gate. So instead of Billy holding his ground and saying, "These are my lady wrestlers and they have their money coming," the men got 17% of the gate, and we got about 10% of what we should have had. And it was a huge sellout crowd. It would have been the biggest ever. And he didn't back me, he didn't get my money. So I said, "Billy, I'll finish the bookings you have for me. And that's it, don't book me again." I really hated to leave wrestling because I loved it. To me it was glamorous, but it was a matter of principle. I don't remember I don't even remember who my last match was with. I just remember that we had one heck of a party after. And I did get on with my life very soon after that. I really don't give credit to wrestling for giving me inner strength. I have to give credit there to being very poor as a child. Determination that it didn't matter if I had beans 6 days a week, and if I hated them or not, I still ate them, and I grew up stronger for them.